Adidas and Puma are two of the world's most iconic sports brands. And yet, they're both based in this tiny town in Germany. That's because these two companies share a very controversial history, filled with betrayal, sabotage, and a sibling rivalry like no other. Adolf and Rudolf Dassler were brothers, but they ended up starting rival shoe companies and becoming bitter enemies. The history of Adidas and Puma was like a lifelong chess match, where both brothers stopped at nothing to try and destroy the other. Even to this day, their family feud still divides the entire town where they were born, with one half backing Adidas and the other backing Puma. This is a story of lies, secrets, and corruption. It spans 2 world wars and uncovers how the founders joined the Nazi Party and produced weapons for Hitler's army. 2 brothers bound by blood, but driven apart by greed and ambition. This is the insane true story of Adidas and Puma. In 1898, Rudolf Dassler, known as Rudy, was born into a poor family. Just 2 years later, his brother Adolf was born, known as Adi, and it's fair to say it was a difficult childhood for the 2 brothers. They lived in a tiny town in Germany that was known for its shoemaking factories. Their father worked at one of these, but he didn't earn enough money to support the whole family, so their mother ran a laundry business on the side. She would clean people's clothes, and then Rudy and Adi would deliver them all around town, and so they quickly became known as the Laundry Boys. However, both boys were later drafted into the German army to fight in the First World War, and by the time they returned home, their mother's laundry business had lost every customer. The war had destroyed Germany's economy, and the situation looked bleak. But this time it was Adi who came up with a business idea to try and help his family survive. Adi had always been interested in athletics, and for many years he'd wanted to follow in his father's footsteps as a shoemaker. You see, at the time, people typically didn't have specific shoes for different events. So Adi figured that if he created spiked shoes specifically for running, it would give athletes a huge advantage. And thus, Adi decided to turn his mother's laundry shed into a workshop for making his own shoes. There were a few major obstacles in the way though. Adi didn't have any money or materials, and the war had knocked out the electricity grids of the town. However, that didn't stop him. Instead of buying the materials he needed to make the shoes, Adi spent days scouring old battlefields for whatever materials he could find. He used strips of leather from helmets, string from broken parachutes, and basically anything he could find to make shoes with. To make up for the lack of electricity, Adi got creative. He attached a leather trimmer to a bicycle wheel and got one of his friends to pedal to give him the power he needed. Thanks to Adi's improvisation, he was able to make shoes that were surprisingly durable, and they became popular in his town. He also became obsessed over every detail of the shoes, and experimented with all different materials and designs. It was clear his business had potential for expansion, and so Adi's brother Rudy decided to quit his job and come work with Adi. Rudy was much more extroverted and charismatic than his brother, so he would focus on sales. Meanwhile, Adi loved sports and was a perfectionist with the designs, so he would focus on manufacturing the shoes. And thus, it seemed like together, they would make a great team. So in 1924, they officially started the Dassler Brothers Sports Shoe Factory. Of course, nobody could have predicted that this joint venture would tear the family apart and lead to 2 global shoe empires. Rudy pitched Dassler shoes to every sports club he could find in Germany. Sales quickly increased, which allowed the brothers to move out of their family's cramped laundry shed and into a new factory with better equipment and more employees. Now, they could make higher quality shoes and also expand into football boots, which was good timing, as football was rapidly growing in popularity across the country. Rudi gave away free pairs to many football clubs, knowing that once they saw the quality, they'd want more. And so business was going well for the brothers. Adi kept improving the quality of his shoes, and Rudi kept selling them out. But then Hitler rose to power, and nothing would ever be the same. The Nazis began heavily promoting sports and physical fitness as a way to foster the German people's national pride, or prepare them for war. This led to an unprecedented amount of demand for sports shoes, and the Dassler brothers were there to profit from it. Both Adi and Rudi also officially joined the Nazi Party. Some may say this was a necessity at the time, if you wanted to run a business in Germany, but there does seem to be evidence that they were both genuine supporters of Hitler. Rudi was actually quite vocal about his strong political opinions in support of the Nazis. And while Adi was less vocal, he was heavily involved in the Hitler Youth. Either way, there's no doubt their sports shoe business massively benefited from the Nazi regime. But their biggest breakthrough of all was in 1936, when Germany hosted the Olympic Games. This was the first ever Olympics to be televised, and so the brothers realised it was a golden marketing opportunity. If they could get Olympic athletes wearing their shoes, it would be the perfect advertisement. And there was one athlete in particular they wanted to wear their shoes: Jesse Owens, an African American who was one of the most popular athletes in the world. However, sponsoring Jesse Owens was a dangerous move. Hitler saw the Olympics as a way to demonstrate to the world what he believed was the superiority of the German race, and so having a black athlete win would go completely against what Hitler wanted, and thus the Dassler brothers being seen to support Jesse Owens was undoubtedly risky. But Adi was determined to do so, and went to find Jesse Owens at the Olympic Village. After a brief conversation, he showed him his personalised running shoes, and Jesse accepted the gift and agreed to wear the shoes during the Olympics. You see, back then, things were different. Athletes were just happy to be gifted great shoes for free and didn't expect any additional compensation for wearing them. Jesse Owens went on to win 4 gold medals at the Berlin Olympic Games whilst wearing Dassler shoes. Hitler was of course furious, as this went completely against the propaganda he was trying to push of the Aryan race being supreme. But this was undoubtedly an incredible promotion for the brothers, as the best athlete at the Olympics was wearing their shoes. Thanks to this publicity, the brothers soon started to receive orders from all over the world. On the surface, everything looked great for their company. However, behind the scenes, tensions had started to grow between the two brothers.